Hello and welcome to Why Make, the podcast where we talk with artists about why they make, with me, your host, Eric Wolkin. To see images of the artwork in this episode and all of our episodes, go to why-make.com. The podcast of late seems to be tracing a lineage, and not really by intention, but by a series of happy coincidences. The lineage is that of the groundbreaking exhibition Making a Seat at the Table, Women Transform Woodworking, which took place at the Museum for Art and Wood in 2019. In our podcast feed, you'll find an episode about the exhibition's seating assignment, which was inspired by making a seat at the table, and then an interview with Annie Evelyn, who participated in both exhibitions. And today, I talk with Teresa Audet, whose piece for the Making a Seat exhibition was called Smile Honey, which was a direct response to being catcalled. But there's a lot more to Teresa's story. She's an artist and educator based in Pittsburgh who has taken some interesting left turns in her career to arrive at the maker she is today. This conversation happened live and in person at the Pocosin Art School of Fine Craft in Columbia, North Carolina, as Teresa was teaching a workshop entitled Boxes, Anything But Square. Many thanks to our good friends at Pocosin for hosting me. Introduce yourself so I do not butcher your name.
Okay. My name's Teresa Audet.
We are going to start with the why make question, which is, what is your first memory of making something?
First memory of making something.
Or having made something where you said, I made this.
My first thought is being a kid, and I have an aunt that lives in San Francisco, and she's like a super, fun, hippie San Francisco lady. And I remember spending time with her on the beach and making weird sculptures out of seaweed. Like we would always find whatever driftwood and random stuff was on the beach and just form it into a mermaid. So that's, for whatever reason, what's come to my mind.
Oh, that is very cool. That is actually a why make first. We've had lots of clay, lots of mud, but we've never had seaweed.
Yeah, I just remember this idea of her just walking down the beach and finding, random stuff that probably everybody else would discard. Twigs and seaweed and whatever has washed up for the day. And just saying oh, what can we just make with this in 5 seconds?
There was a time requirement?
I guess so, because it was I'm a kid, so I only have so much attention span.
Give me your brief history. What was your path to becoming an artist? What happened after seaweed?
After seaweed? Well, okay, so in high school, I got really into art. And I was definitely had some struggles with mental health and found the art room as a haven. And my art teacher was incredible and was really encouraging to me. And so I knew that I wanted to go into the field of art. I knew I wanted to become an artist. And so I went to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, thinking I would be maybe a painting major or something like that. And in my first semester, I saw that there was a furniture design class offered. And I was I have never heard of that. I'd never been in the wood shop. I wasn't really not that I wasn't allowed in the wood shop in high school, but it just wasn't. It was oh, you're an artist. You're either going to do painting or ceramics. Those are your options. And it was actually in the painting class. We had a demo in the wood shop one day, learning how to build stretchers for the canvases. And I don't know what it was, but that did it for me. And so then I was okay, I'm going to take this furniture design class. And my teacher was a guy named Dean Wilson, who taught there for a long time. And he was just really encouraging and fun. And the painting teacher was not so much. And so it was okay, well, I would like to spend my time in a wood shop. I graduated in 2011 and then stayed in Minnesota for about 10 years, maybe a little more, and was working, I worked for this woman named Cecilia Schiller for a long time. I started working for her actually when I was still an undergrad, and she's a wood carver and does Automata.
Automata? Never heard of this before. So I checked out Cecilia's website, and clearly she's known for making these hand-cranked wooden sculptures, machines really that perform clever repetitive movements. Each is a little scene like a magician performing tricks or the piece seeking solace and inspiration in the office of Dr. Flowers. These are amazingly intricate and beautifully made little performances in wood.
It wasn't until I was working for Cecilia that I really started to get into like fine woodworking and craft, because she just does everything with hand tools and chisels. And I did a lot of like cutting out gears on a scroll saw and sanding them and meticulously drilling hundreds of holes to make a 10-foot long bicycle chain that makes some gears move. Her work is unbelievable. It's bonkers and so detailed. I worked for her probably on and off for about 8 years. I worked for her for free in exchange for use of her shop. And so I feel like it was through her that I got introduced to craft schools and teaching workshops and also just watching her run a business and write grants and like create this work and put together gallery exhibitions. Yeah, it was like really beneficial.
Did you ever really have an interest in making furniture?
I did, yes. So I graduated in 2011 and kind of right away started my own business while I was working for Cecilia one day a week, working for this like cabinet shop guy one day a week, and then working at the hardware store. But I was doing a lot of commissioned furniture. From about 2012 to 2016, I was really doing like just, woodworker for hire, like restaurants, building a bunch of tabletops for restaurants and a lot of cutting boards. Like I was doing woodworking full time, but it was mostly like, okay, I got to make 100 cutting boards in a week and go do 3 farmers markets every weekend. So I did that for a few years and got kind of burnt out. So around 2016, 17, I started traveling to do residencies, and I spent probably 3 years just sort of like living in my parents' basement when I wasn't at a residency. Christine Lee came and visited while I was a resident at Anderson Ranch, and she was like, grad school is kind of like a 3-year residency. So that sort of planted the seed for me. And it really was just that I felt really burnt out from running a business, only making functional work and like making this more creative conceptual work when I had time. I want to go to grad school and figure out what else is available besides cutting board land.
Christine Lee, as you might guess, is also a woodworker and interdisciplinary artist, who, as coincidence would have it, was also in the Making a Seat at the Table exhibition. Her piece in the show, Stacking Order, is a brilliant assemblage of tapered wood builder shims and paint, materials you would find in a big box lumber store. Teresa listened to Christine's advice and went to graduate school at the University of Wisconsin, becoming one of the first graduate students of program director Katie Hudnall, whose amazing sketchbook is featured in a Why Make video.
What was I doing in grad school? A lot of thinking about the processes of making. So I kind of took a performance art class in my first year, mostly because I was like, what feels the most outlandish and foreign and like not and uncomfortable? What feels the most uncomfortable to me? Performance art was like, I've never even heard of this. But thinking about how much the process of making is important to my final product, I'm like, okay, well, is that performance? So one of the first performance pieces that I did that I really felt like, okay, this is a piece of performance art, was I dragged a woodworking bench into this big gallery and put a piece of mahogany in there and hand planed it on edge for about 4 hours until it was just gone and a pile of wood shavings. And I really just wanted to think, because I was thinking so much about, okay, this process is so important to me. What if it's just the process? I have a video that's like a 4-hour long video. Like I think it's on YouTube with 3 views or something. But I've shown it a few times in a gallery, and so many people told me how relaxing it was to watch me do that. But I was just really thinking about like, okay, can I take this action that feels so important to me and say this is important enough to be in a gallery by itself?
And was the idea that you whittled the piece down to nothing part of the performance?
Yeah. It was the idea that like the physical object is irrelevant. It's just the idea of the labor and the craft.
But there's also this sort of idea of transformation too.
Yeah.
because this board became a pile of wood shavings.
Yeah.
So it transforms into another material
Yeah.
that can also be something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so now I have, 3 garbage bags full of wood shavings that I just have to keep in my storage unit forever.
Anything else in graduate school that was out of the box to say?
Yeah. I took a comics class.
As in drawing comics.
Yeah. Comics drawing. And that was completely transformative. We had to do these daily diary drawings. And so I spent a whole semester drawing myself as a fish on the table saw. We had to be Batman for a week. So I'm making my dinner in my kitchen dressed as Batman in my drawings. But yeah, I think the combination of that comics class and the performance class, it really loosened up my practice.
And now on to the piece Teresa did for the exhibition, Making a Seat at the Table. As we mentioned in the introduction, it was called Smile Honey, and she created it in direct response to an upsetting experience that she had hanging out with friends in a bar.
Kind of looks like a pitchfork almost, or just like a 2-prong, like a big Y shape.
It's like a fork with the middle tongs missing.
Yeah. And it's actually, to get nerdy, it's bricklay. It's 3 layers, very thin, stacked together. So it's all these itty bitty pieces. But it is a tool to help women smile while they're being catcalled. So you hold it in your hand and it presses up on your cheeks and forces a smile in a super uncomfortable, creepy, and sort of humorous way.
It's some very nerdy woodworking.
So I was very intentional about that because I knew, okay, if I'm going to make a sculptural woodworking object that's going to go in the gallery and talk about the experience of being a woman, it has to be, I can't leave any room for criticism. I can't leave any room for someone to say, you're not a craftsperson. A lot of the reason why that show was so groundbreaking, because it was this thing that almost every woman woodworker I know has had some sort of horrible experience in a male-dominated field. I was at the opening reception for the Making the Seat at the Table and just looking around and realizing that I was sharing a gallery space with all these women who had inspired me to start what I was doing. And I just started crying.
Did you build that specifically for that show?
No, actually, I made that piece when I was a resident artist at Anderson Ranch, maybe 2 years prior to the show. Yeah. And it was actually after an experience that we had. We were in downtown Aspen and this creepy dude was being creepy. And I told the bouncers and they were just we don't care. And I was so upset I went home and made that piece. One of the few experiences I've had where I'm I just had an actual life experience that was so visceral and so unpleasant that I have to go tomorrow and make a piece about it.
Another large part of Teresa's art-making practice is basketry, and of course we are not talking functional baskets, but these wonderful wall-hung woven tubes that spiral around or hang off a central wooden element, which are sometimes boxes which can be opened.
Yeah, so that really came about, I think it was from hanging out at the craft schools, hanging out at North House Folk School in Minnesota. I'm there in the wood shop assisting a class. My friends are there in basketry. And, at night you just go around to the other studios and you're what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, that's cool. What's this material? So that's how I was introduced to basketry. It's almost wood, right? It's a part of a tree. It's not that far apart from woodworking and what we're doing. And so I found rattan, I think, just through that process of sort of exploring basketry materials.
What is rattan exactly?
It is a reedy plant. It's similar to bamboo. It looks kind of like bamboo. It grows like these big stalks. Grows pretty quickly. Usually I think it's 6 months from seed to harvest. I like that this is sort of a material I can just sort of purchase and treat as a blank canvas, and I can dye it with fabric dyes, and you soak it in water, and it's like wood because it has this porous grain-like structure, but It's like if wood was silly string.
Do you use your sketchbook a lot?
I don't often draw like the objects that I'm going to make. I don't necessarily use my sketchbook so much for that. But I do like to draw things from life and interesting things I see. I think studying furniture design, like scale drawings and model making, was always sort of introduced to me as this is how you start. It wasn't until recently when I realized, okay, if I'm starting with flat sheets of wood and sticks and dowels and whatever to make models, my piece is probably going to end up sticky and flat. So I've started using like Sculpey clay, doesn't dry, to create forms, because I'm like, okay, if I'm interested in an organic form, let's start in a material that can make that organic form. And then I'll take that and like slice it apart or use that as a model to create the final object. A lot of it is just kind of playing around. Like I do a lot of small, it's probably why most of my work now is fairly small, because I just like to get a thought out. And so it's like, okay, what can I make in 15, 20 minutes and just get this idea out of my head?
Let's end up here by talking about teaching.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite exercises you like to do with students in teaching?
Ooh.
How do you like to open people up when teaching a class?
Well, especially at places like a craft school, where everyone's coming from different backgrounds, I like to start by explaining how I have sort of found my way into this weird, non-traditional sculptural woodworking. I think a lot of people come into the wood shop thinking, okay, I'm going to have to do X, Y, Z, and it's very rigid, and we have to measure. And I try to never use a tape measure. I just like the way that I've developed my practice. It's very intuitive and very sculptural. So I like to start, usually on the first day, I'm like, let's carve a spoon, or like, let's make a texture. Let's make a bandsaw box. Let's do something quick and non-precious to get something out of the way and just get your hands dirty and make something in the shop on day one. I did have an exercise that I liked. So when I was in grad school, I was teaching an undergrad class, and I had them do a project where they had to show me 3 failures. That's it. That was really, log your hours, tell me that you've worked on something for 20 hours, and show me 3 times that you tried something, not necessarily failed, but you tried something, it wasn't what you wanted, you learned from it, you made another thing, you learned from it, you made another thing. And telling 18-year-olds that they have to fail, I got a lot of pushback. But I think it was really helpful, just the idea that...
No, I mean, most of making is failing.
Yes, yeah, and figuring out how to pick yourself back up and do the thing again and try a different method. Okay, this isn't about trying to make a perfect object. It's about enjoying this experience of making and what does it do for you, to the act of creation. Yeah.
That is the perfect place to end it. Thank you so much for joining me, Teresa. And why make?
Thank you. Why make?
In wrapping this up, I can only repeat Teresa's final thought. Failure is a wonderful thing to behold. It's really about the journey and not the destination. You can see photos of all of Teresa's artwork that we have talked about in this episode by going to her website, teresaaudet.com, and also on the page for this episode at y-make.com. She also frequently teaches at Contemporary Craft in Pittsburgh, so visit contemporarycraft.org to see her teaching schedule. Again, many thanks to our good friends at Pocosin Art School of Fine Craft in Columbia, North Carolina, for hosting this conversation. Why Make is a production of Eric Wolkin. This episode was edited with help from Johanna Zorn and audio engineering from Joe Dassault. You can help support the Why Make podcast by going to y-make.com and clicking the donate button. All donations are tax deductible through our fiscal sponsor, Fractured Atlas, and many thanks to our sustaining donors.